Greetings. This is video 1 of Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 17. And originally I was calling it iQuest On. We've already had 6 Zoom sessions and now they're stopping, and I'm going to put out 3 videos for the rest of the summer until we have a fall session or the winter session like we've been having. But a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I changed the title from iQuest On, which is an anagram of question, to Quest is On, which is an anagram of questions. And today I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about what some of my quest has been as it relates to brass playing. But first, I do want to say, and I think people know this, I've said it many times in many different writings and I'm sure on several videos, that my quest is one, primarily, the main theme of my quest is truth, the meaning of life, and the great composer of life. And so that all, of course, comes under the title of music is a living thing. Life is a living thing. And anyone who has a lifelong quest will say that quest is a living thing. In so many different ways. We have many different little goals, don't we, if we set ourselves on a quest. There are certain signposts that come up, say, oh, you're kind of here, and you feel like you're building some kind of foundation, then it can collapse. Then you go, up you go. You keep on keeping on, because there's something about that decision and the quest itself that propels you forward, and hopefully, in the bigger picture, a progressive way, even though it just looks like these poly little crises that happen all the time, or multi little whoops, that what does it, am I moving along? And when you start to drop that am I moving along in a certain kind of way and have a broader look at it, other things are possible. So one of the things I want to bring up today, to put this into the realm of music, is a part of my bigger quest. Because I've spent so long with it, ever since I was 9 years old, with my horn and my love of music, and having to put my embouchure back together when I was already in the Boston Symphony at age 22, and I just acted carelessly in the midst of a ton of playing, and it took 4 years to actually find a structure that was starting to stabilize, because I didn't take a day off of the job when that was happening. So just to say that. So I'm very interested in all aspects of playing. There isn't one way, okay? I think many times when people find their way, they make it an orthodoxy for themselves. If it works, it works, okay? But sometimes not everyone can follow that particular orthodoxy that someone came up with. And eventually, their own orthodoxy will be challenged. Guess why? Because we're alive. We are living human beings. And the fact that we're living human beings, we're changing. And we need to adopt to change. If you want to continue, otherwise there's all this conflict. Growth is change. When things start to fall apart, that's change, but it could be a sign of you need to build something else to keep going on your quest. So I hope this is making sense. So I was in a coffee shop earlier this week, and all I need is a few sips of coffee. It was a good coffee shop, and I was sitting in there and actually waiting for my car to... They were working on it. They'd say it'd take a couple hours, and it turned out to be 4. But anyway, right? That's part of life. So I'm in the coffee shop and had a little cookie. Tried not to eat all of it. And I took out a pencil and paper, and I've been thinking about drawing a map of the embouchure. So I'm drawing my lines, curved lines, straighter lines, little corners. And you'd look at a picture, and even if it's a photo, I grew up looking at what the Kleinheimer book, I think, and Phil Farkas' book my brother had. And there's all these pictures of members of the Chicago Symphony and others who had, had their embouchure visualizer, the ring up there, and this one's looking like this, and this one's looking like this one's looking a little like that, and you're seeing different embouchures, but you're looking at still life. You're not looking at the functionality of how that embouchure actually works with all the various parts. So a film of different people's embouchures would be very interesting indeed. Especially if it was hooked up to a horn, because then that changes it, doesn't it, in a big way, with the resistances and pressures that are created by having a horn instead of just a little mouthpiece that you're playing on. And so I'm drawing this map because the day before that, all these other little features about places on the anatomy of the embouchure that exist and that I've actually used. At a certain point in time, I wasn't thinking about all these little things. But if you have to put something back together in yourself, or you hurt yourself and you go through certain therapies and certain exercises and certain change of lifestyles to heal from an injury, you're more aware of subtlety. Because that thing called pain, or that thing called, I can't do that again today. What did I do the other day that made it so I can't and I could before? And you're going through all this stuff. So you're much more aware. And if you welcome it as a journey, it takes on a whole different feeling. Because your life is trying to tell you something at that point about you, the driver of the vehicle. So anyway, I'm drawing this little map. And yes, I was aware of, oh yes, there's points and there's lines. Or if you prefer, dots and lines. Here to here, or the left corner to the right corner, connected by a horizontal bar. And these up here, let's say, it's like crow's feet or the cow catcher or kind of a horseshoe that connects all this. And they have their own variations in movement. A foundational ridge. I'm just giving you a very little bit of Bolter analogy. An interesting one is this little dent right here. Okay, and I have a special name for that one, the teeter. And the reason why it's called a teeter, I really didn't know until I went, wait, it's like a teeter-totter, because some people bend this way, some people bend that way, like this. And the same thing with here. And I just started to realize while looking at this map, all the dots and the lines connected and this and that, it almost formed like a constellation. You've seen maps of constellations, you know, Orion, Virgo, Taurus. All these astrological signs actually have a place within the sky. Okay, and they've taken, okay, this goes from this star to this one, to this, to that, and then they make something that looks like the shape like they're talking about, whether it's a bull, whether it's a lion, that kind of thing. And so you'll see they'll draw from a point, which is a star or a planet, and they'll draw to another one, right? And you get this shape. Well, the embouchure has its own very intricate, interesting shape. So I might put something together about that, and if people are interested, because I think it's a unique way, because it talks about the variability of movements, or the variety of movements within each one of the parts, whether they're the points. A point can't move without a line. A line is not going to move unless it's holding on to a specific point. But there's points within the lines, right? A line, you could break it up into many, many points. And so all this is happening to me, and I went, wait a minute. This brings up the mental embouchure. And the mental embouchure, what is that? Well, if we look at the word embouchure, like a form, all right? It's a formation. It's a structure. And so what is our mental structure? Okay? I've talked about the mental embouchure before. But depending on this mental embouchure and how stuck it might be in one place or another, like you've taken on someone else's orthodoxy of playing, say, my corners can never do that. They did. And you don't realize, well, there's a spectrum. It doesn't have to be too extreme, but a little bit of something could help what you're doing. Say, they got to be all the way down all the time. You know, this is preventative. You know, it's preventing you from discovering the natural organic movement within a basic set of principles or template, for example. And everyone's is going to be slightly different. You're not a perfect symmetry. Okay? Sorry, you're not. And many times I've talked with people who have looked into the Reinhardt School of Playing and the Arnold Jacobs School of Playing, and some people like to really boil it down like Jacobs did to wind and song, and I'm sure he had a lot of reasons why he did that, and I see why he did that. John Coffey, bass trombone player from a long time ago, was in the Boston Symphony, and I believe in Philly too, or maybe Cleveland. He used to have a shop in Boston many years ago when I first came to town. But he used to tell his students, tongue and blow, kid. I get it. But, you know, obviously there's a little more to it than that. But if that kind of thing triggers something for someone in a way that kind of ignites the biology needed to play, and they connect their mind to that, and it seems to work, that's what's important. Until things maybe get a little more difficult and your standards or your need, artistic need for more variety might come in, then you might gonna say, okay. It's like people say, just sing through the horn, just sing through the horn. And I've discovered, well, that means, you know, try to have the most beautiful sound you can with a nice legato and a line and all that. That's lovely. I've heard a lot of players who can do that wonderfully, but their singing always sounds the same. And this is nothing against anyone. This is my research. I'm just sharing a bit of it, a fraction. Okay? So I question it all. And I realize that's what I do with life. And if you want to know more about any particular thing, how can you not have questions? And the questions offer another angle of looking at something. Instead of just being pigeonholed, left, right. Or what about something above left and right? You know, for example, in the analogy of the embouchure, my left corner is not like my right corner. Can I have the same basic principles going on? Yes, as long as I don't think they have to be like ruler matched. Like they should measure exactly this way or that way. And they still might have different functions. The same basic one, but they might be different. And so this is just a glimpse into the mental embouchure and where we're stuck in our concepts might prevent us from seeing the embouchure as a constellation, seeing the embouchure like a spider's web, okay, with all the connected points, all right, going to the middle, and so much more. And so wanted to share that with you in this quest is on. Because of the nature of my quest, like I told you about, and then applying music and the instrument to it, I'm going to tell you the honest truth. I never run out of ideas. And that's why. And the more I want, the more I realize, whoop, I'm stuck a little bit here in my concept. Why is that? Everything has a spectrum of possibility. So, thanks for listening. Hope you find this interesting. Take a look at physical and mental. I guess there's an emotional embouchure.